The Human Optimization Podcast is proudly brought to you by Vicon Supplements, where quality meets sustainability. Vicon's all-natural supplements are handcrafted and sustainably produced in Canada, bringing you products that nourish both your well-being and our planet. Visit ViconSupplements.com today and be a part of a greener, healthier future.
Are you ready to embark on a journey to the best version of you? Join me, Lisa Pitel-Killah, as I dive deep into the world of hair tissue mineral analysis and functional medicine with fellow experts, and guide you on the path of unlocking your full potential. As a multi-time kettlebell sport world champion, I'm on a mission to reach high-performance professionals from around the world to help you minimize tiring symptoms, maximize health, and gain unstoppable energy. This is the Human Optimization Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Pitel-Killah, and I have Sherri Sherock here today, and she's going to talk all about her MenoWarrior Method. Yes, I said that right. MenoWarrior Method. She's going to tell us all about that, but let me tell you first a little bit about Sherri. Sherri is a board-certified functional practitioner. She is a Peri-Postmenopausal Specialist. She's a functional fitness trainer and a women's health coach who helps women master menopause. Yes, master menopause holistically with lifestyle options. She's the founder of KickSpark Whole Body Wellness and creator of the women's wellness program that I already mentioned, the MenoWarrior Method. Sherri's passionate about breaking down the social stigma of women 40 plus by educating women on how to be strong, both mentally and physically. Her mission is to commit to improving the health of women through functional nutrition, movements, and knowledge so women can live healthy and powerful lives. That is an amazing mission. Welcome to the show, Sherri.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm determined and dedicated, but it lights me up to do this.
Amazing. Well, and so there's always a reason, and I always start the show is exactly the same. There's always a reason why you are here in this space doing what you're doing. So give us a background on Sherri. Tell us your journey and how you got here.
All right. How much time you got? No, just kidding. Well, I'll tell you what, just a little background about me. It all happened when my son was diagnosed with autism on the autism spectrum, and we didn't know anything about it. And at the time I still am, I'm a certified commercial interior designer, and I worked for an architectural firm at the time. And here he's my first baby. Yep. And we get the news that he has been diagnosed. And this is 2005, 2004, 4. And not too much was going, talking about it as it is now, thank goodness. Now it's more awareness. But as we were learning, we were thrown into this world. I just, mom, gut feeling, I'm like, something's off. And we ended up finding a person who does hair mineral testing. And we got his hair tested, and he was high in mercury and a lot of toxic metals. And so with that journey, because it was more of a holistic approach and working with foods and movement, and he's is working towards recovery. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, if food and movement is affecting him, how's it affecting us? The colors, right? Red number 40 and all this. And so it had me dive into health and wellness. So from there, I sort of switched careers. I became a personal trainer. I became a health coach. So as we were working through, the whole family was changing with the way we were looking at things.
Amazing.
So that was our journey for a while. And my son, I'm happy to report, he's, still working with things, but he goes to the university. He's going to be graduating next year, and he drives. And so with these lifestyle changes, this happened. So that was my first eye opener. Number 2, let's move down the timeline a little. As I was around 45, things are happening. What's going on? And, I was really, I still am fit, but I was really fit at the time. And, nothing was stopping me. But then all of a sudden, I just wasn't feeling myself. I was gaining the weight. I was getting tired, memory loss. And at the time I was working in corporate,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sitting in a meeting with my coworkers about a big top client and
Yeah.
who's going to be doing which projects. And it gets to me, okay, Sherry going to do this, Sally's going to do strategic, what have you. We get back to the desk and I'm sitting there and I forgot. I had no clue. I'm like, what am I
Wow.
supposed to do again? I seriously couldn't remember. Granted, I took notes, but it was like still foggy.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't go back to my male boss because that's weird, right? He's going to think, what
It's
is
true.
wrong with you, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
even I felt uncomfortable going to my female peers. It was just, I just didn't feel right, and I was off.
Mm-hmm.
Go to my doctor, and it was just like, well, here's the pill, or an antidepressant, and I'm like,
Oh my goodness.
oh, and they thought it was, something else, and I had a small procedure, and it never was that, and that was it. If it happens again, let me know, and then that was that, and I'm like, this is unacceptable. I just don't feel right. Even going to doctors, it was just take a pill. It's like, I'm not a pill person. And is our journey with my son and how our family's been moving towards. And so I just didn't know what was going on. I was determined to find out. So I'm like, I'm looking. So I got certified as a Peri-Postmenopausal Specialist
Mm-hmm.
because I want to know what's going on in our body.
Yep.
There's changes happening, and my cycle was off. It was like way too, like, it was longer, it was short, it was a hot flash. What is going on? What do I do about it? And I was not getting any answers besides a pill
Mm-hmm.
from doctors. Now, I'm not poo-pooing doctors. There's, thank goodness there's doctors, because there's people that really do need that. But
Of course.
I
Yeah.
I'm here where, hey, can you just give me a lifestyle options too? Because there are lifestyle options you
Mm-hmm.
can implement to
Mm-hmm.
help with journey
Mm-hmm.
there we go, the journey through menopause.
Yep.
To get through it, and that's not talked about.
Right.
And I was my own guinea pig. So I'm trying, dandelion root. I'm trying, elixirs, changing the way I eat root vegetables, moving my body differently. That
Mm-hmm.
was also another one, which we can talk about later. And it made a huge difference. And my perimenopausal symptoms subsided.
Mm-hmm.
Lost the weight. I was feeling better. Memory, it was coming back. I'm in postmenopause now,
Mm-hmm.
so your brain recalibrates in postmenopause. So no worries, women, ladies out there. It does come back, but that's just how I just, like, this is unacceptable. We should be educated, not when we're going through it. If
Mm-hmm.
it is when we're going through it, that's still great. But we should be knowing this, how our body works from the beginning.
Yeah.
And when I do public speaking, I talk about how we were first introduced. I'm sure you remember when you had the talk in school in junior high. It was a
Mm-hmm.
5-minute discussion. And
It's true.
don't forget your sample baggie of a sample tampon pad and an aspirin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now it's Advil, but that was it.
Yeah.
And and don't talk about it. So
Yeah.
that's my journey. This is how I got where I'm at, and I'm determined because there's so many women out there that hate themselves, and that's what hurts me the most. They hate their
Yeah.
body, they hate the weight, they hate themselves because of the changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to let them know that, one, there are options, that lifestyle options that you can just easily implement. And this is your body's way of working things out, but it needs support. And that's what those symptoms are all about. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
No.
that's what happened.
Well, first of all, I think that's amazing, that the work that you're doing and being
Yep.
able to educate people. And I definitely think that you are 100% correct. And I think that it's almost as if women who, it's like, oh, that won't happen to me. Well, it's going to happen to everybody, right? I'm in it now. I'm 51 now, right? So I'm in it now. It happens to everybody. Don't let yourself be blindsided by it, right? And I think that's where part of it comes from, because like, oh, you know what? I'll be fine, and then you're not fine.
Great.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about, so you touched a little bit on, using lifestyle factors and movement. So let's touch first. I'm curious just about the movement. How did that change for you? What did that look like from a physical movement perspective?
Yeah. So to touch on what you just said was I was lifting heavy,
Hmm.
and I had that same thing. Oh, well, I'm in great shape. It's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to get those symptoms.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But what happens then as our hormones change, we have to change the way we move. And what happens, cortisol levels are on the rise because estrogen is either, if you're in perimenopause,
Hmm.
estrogen is fluctuating up
Yeah.
and down. Estrogen is our insulin receptors with our muscle fibers. And so but also our progesterone, which is our Zen hormone, I call it. It
Hmm.
gives us the relaxation, calms us down. That's tanking at
Yeah.
the first thing to go. So what's happening then when I'm lifting heavy as I used to, which don't get me wrong, that's very important to do resistance training during
Hmm.
this time. However, not as like hit training, like real to stress out the body because what's happening, the cortisol levels are increasing even more,
Yeah.
therefore creating more havoc in the body. So
Hmm.
what you think is, oh, I lifted heavy, extreme, you're actually creating more stress on the
Yeah.
body. And then it just dominoes from there. So so it was hard for me. Oh my gosh, it was so hard for me because I love lifting heavy. But appreciating the resistant bands
Hmm.
and TheraBands, but also still
Yep.
lifting weights. I still lift weights as well, dumbbells,
Hmm.
even a barbell.
Hmm.
Um, but pacing yourself, yoga, the flexibility, the
Hmm.
stretching, incorporating myofascial release as well.
Hmm.
But giving yourself grace. I was always, oh, I got to do this workout. I got to do it because if I don't, if I miss,
Yeah.
and it was this guilt thing. But and so then let's add in that little piece of you're getting fatigued. So here I'm
Hmm.
tired and I couldn't work out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to work out. But I was extremely tired. And that's another thing women push through.
Yeah.
When you're tired, listen to your body, do something, do yoga, or even do resistant bands
Hmm.
instead of the heavy heart, hit workout or heavy cardios and what have you. Because
Yeah.
again, that creates the havoc. So just giving yourself grace, being patient, and working through how you're feeling, but then also working with how your body is, where you're at in the state,
Yeah.
which also is with your cycles and your moon phases, which I don't want
Mhm.
to get too far, but that also affects movement as well.
Yeah, so let's talk about that because I want to dive a little bit down, obviously hormone balance because you talked about estrogen and progesterone. I was like, right. So I want to touch on that, but let's bring the moons into the picture. I think a lot of people hear about this, maybe they know, maybe they don't, but I
Mhm.
do think it's important as you mentioned. So share a little bit about that with us.
Yeah. So you got the moon phases and then you
Hmm.
have your cycle phases.
Hmm.
So women that are still cycling regularly, you would follow your regular cycle, meaning you have your menstrual phase, follicular phase, you have ovulation, and then you have your luteal phase.
Hmm.
And those are the four phases that we go through from when we start our cycle until perimenopause when it's inconsistent. So that's where we begin. So let's take, for instance, our follicular phase. That's right when we finish our period. We're feeling fantastic. We got the energy. We're ready to take on the world.
Yeah.
That's where you can do the heavy lifting, I call it functional cardio. Also, you got that energy, so let's do it. And
Hmm.
so you have that usually lasts 7 to 10 days, our follicular phase. It depends on the woman, but
Hmm.
it's roughly around there.
Hmm.
Then we get into ovulation. Ovulation's our peak. So we're feeling good, feeling, that's our time, 2 to 3 days where our body is preparing itself if our egg's going to be fertilized or not.
Hmm.
So we're
Hmm.
feeling good. Again, we have that high energy, still continuing on what we're doing in the follicular phase. But then as we loop around to the luteal phase, at the beginning, we're still feeling good, but we're going to slowly feel a little bit more tired because our body's preparing for our menstrual phase if we did not get pregnant. And so you'll start to notice as you're getting closer to your time of when you're supposed to start your cycle, you're starting to get tired. We're more inward. And so that's when we should maybe Pilates, do a little bit more yoga, slow it down, and that fact. And then once you hit your menstrual cycle, you can do myofascial release. We can do stretching, walking. Hey, how about resting? Resting still counts, right? Still.
New concept.
Right? I know. It took me a while. So that's the phases during our cycle. So I would highly recommend women from when they start cycling until perimenopause to follow their cycle. Key thing for all women, just step aside and just be aware. Be aware of how you feel. I think us women, we're always on the go, go, go. I mean, our arm could be falling off and we'd be like, no, it's all right, 5 minutes, I'll be there,
It's true.
No, so I think just slowing down and just being mindful. How am I feeling? And respecting yourself. And then move and eat accordingly. Now, moving forward, if you're in perimenopause and it's irregular cycles, more than likely that may be from the beginning, but a lot of times it's there's two phases of perimenopause, phase 1 and phase 2. And phase 1, you're gonna have a longer cycle, and they're gonna be heavier. And so that's when the hormones are just changing. And then phase 2, they become shorter and lighter. And that's when you're getting closer to menopause. Now, if they're very inconsistent, I just tell my clients, you know what, just follow the moon phases. Yeah. And so similar concept to which I just explained with the cycle, with your menstrual cycle, we're going to follow the moon. So let's just start with our menstrual cycle. Our menstrual cycle is new moon. So you just follow so if it's new moon, then that's when you do light workout like you would if you were having your cycle. And then you'd follow that until you get into maybe 4 to 7 days. I have a calendar until you get to the waxing moon. And then once you get into that waxing moon, halfway between new moon and full moon, that's when that follicular phase is. That's when you can, have that energy. You're lifting heavier, doing a little bit more functional cardio type of things. Yeah. And same thing as we get into our full moon. Full moon, again, we have that energy and still following what we're doing follicular. But as we turn the bend from full moon, heading back up to new moon, we should look at that as a luteal phase. And again, slowly moving into a slower pattern, Pilates, yogas. You can even do weights, but do a lighter weights, more of more of endurance, maybe something like that, resistance.
Makes sense. Makes total sense. Yeah.
So instead of following your cycle, since it's inconsistent, you're following the moon. Many people think I'm crazy, but this has been practiced for centuries. And
yeah, absolutely.
It went away. And now it seems to be this new thing, or like, what? And I'm trying to, not to try to bring it back, but just bring it to awareness, because it's true. Once you become aware of your body and how you feel, and then you're like, oh, when is it? You check the calendar, you're like, oh my gosh, it makes sense. It's when we pay attention and we slow down, then that's when you can really start to get in sync with your body.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And you're right. It's been around forever. And I think it's interesting because I think we see things come back around and we think they're new and they're not.
Right.
We just forgot about them for a while. And now we're remembering, right?
Yeah. No, I agree.
I always find that so funny. And so I want to talk a little bit about the changes, obviously, when we're talking about hormone balance, but let's talk a little bit about nutrition. How much, what can women do through nutrition to kind of take away some of the symptoms and help them just feel a little bit more normal?
Yeah, definitely. That was a big, huge game changer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, thinking about what you be mindful about what you're having, what you're eating during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Biggest triggers for hot flashes, refined sugar,
Mm-hmm.
gluten, and dairy. Those are the three, and it sort of overlaps those three on other things as we move through different functional practices as well. Those are three big triggers right there. So if you can minimize the refined sugar,
Mm-hmm.
I know this is probably not the best analogy, but taking it slow. If you can do cold turkey, great. But if not, slow. So here's my analogy. If you're eating like 36 Oreos every day, I'm going to ask you, hey, maybe if you can bring it down this week to maybe 33, and then slowly decrease, because just cutting it off could be, you may get cravings and then you end up binging. So
Mm-hmm.
just slowly easing off. Same thing with, anything like that. I try not to like eliminate, because I want to add. So I
Yep.
tried to add more.
Mm.
Um, Another thing I like to implement is an add that
Mm-hmm.
really helps. That sort of goes through with the moon cycles and your own cycle, is a seed cycling.
Ah,
Seed
yes.
cycling.
Right. Yeah, that's so important, I think.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. And people are like, what? And again, it's like either following your cycle or
Mm-hmm.
the moon phases.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just take the moon, for example, let's just say from new moon to full moon, implementing pumpkin seeds and flax seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And then from full moon back up to new moon, implementing sunflower and sesame. And what are in these seeds? These seeds are so powerful. They support those two hormones, estrogen,
Mm-hmm.
between the follicular phase,
Mm-hmm.
and then the progesterone. So those support and nourish those. So it helps. I've had so many clients tell me that they just implemented seed cycling, and their hot flashes and their mood swings decreased
Wow.
substantially. Yeah, and just with seed.
Yep.
And I think it's so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So seed cycling is something, but a huge thing that I always do the big threes. These are
Mm-hmm.
my big threes. One is getting enough protein,
Yep.
at least 30 grams of protein per meal. And some people are like, meal, not a day. I'm like, per meal, because our body needs it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Muscles and especially our hormones. Um, I call them good fats. I hate to say good or bad, but healthy fats.
Yep.
Again, that's another thing. Fat. Yeah, you got the olive oils, you got the avocados,
Yep.
almond butter type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Yeah, because you mention these key words and they think, no, I don't want the fats. And then going into my next one, my other three, my third one is the fibrous carbs. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's that word again, carbs. What? I'm on a no carb diet. Your body needs carbs, but
Mm-hmm.
not the refined carbs. It
Right.
needs the fibrous carbs. We're talking leafy greens. We're talking root vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
even fruits. And that's what our body needs. Nature's food, right?
Yeah.
That's what our body needs. So those are my big threes that I really encourage people to think about when you put your plate together. How much do you have in your little fats, your
Mm-hmm.
protein, and your fibrous carbs? And just looking at, and once you start getting into that rhythm of looking at your plate, okay, I'm missing a healthy fat.
Mm-hmm.
Then it becomes so much easier, and then also noticing how you're feeling. You're feeling fuller more.
Yeah.
Instead of instead of getting hungry shortly after and craving sweet.
Yeah.
So that also helps metabolism as well. So
Yeah.
those are just some things right
Amazing.
there.
Well, and it is interesting because I feel like the weight gain, right, that naturally kind of as things change, right? I think that is a scary thing for women, right? And so they're thinking about, well, what worked in my 20s to lose weight, right? And what did we do back in the 80s and 90s? I mean, we just, we're going to eat, so many calories a day and that's it. Like, we don't care what it is. That doesn't work anymore.
That's right. It's true.
Right? That doesn't work anymore. You have to be a little bit more strategic. And I think that the protein piece scares people because I feel like we are intimidated by it as women, right? We think of protein and then we associate that with, men, and even way back when, at bodybuilders and things like that. Well, I don't want to look like that. It's like, but that's not what's going to happen when you consume appropriate levels of protein, right?
Right.
Yeah. And I think overall, I feel bad for the word fat because, throughout decades of no fat diets and low fat, no fat, it's just like, oh my gosh, fat got such a bad name.
I know. And that's why I mentioned, it's like, I'm going to say the bad word, fat. But it is, our body needs that. Cholesterol too. Our body needs cholesterol, and everyone has it. I mean, there's levels. Obviously, you don't want it to be dangerously high, but our body still needs cholesterol, and cholesterol got a bad name too.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And so I want to touch back on one thing, and then I want to dive into another one that I know people struggle with a lot during menopause is you were talking about cognitive function, right? Just how brain fog and all. Give us some little just feedback or tips. How did you kind of manage your way through that? And how does the dietary changes, did that help with that brain fog and that lift?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the food and the movement. Everything's all connected. And that's why it's so important. This is, again, when you go to healthcare, you go there with a symptom and they treat just the symptom. When we work with people, it's about the whole body because everything is connected. The movement and the food, and everything that you do affects your brain. Let's go to sleep. Sleep is huge, especially for the cognitive. So hydration's huge for cognitive. So adding in all these lifestyle pieces, which is right here at our fingertips, that's something that can increase. So a lot of times, you don't even think about drinking water. I mean, I'm diligent with, my water now, so by the past 10 years, but it's only when I got thirsty, I would drink water. And that's a majority for many women. And at that time, when you do get thirsty, you're already dehydrated.
I was going to say, you're already way past that needing water. You're already dehydrated.
Thinking about those are these things that help with the cognitive piece. So it's not just one thing, it's everything. So it's the good fats. It's the protein, it's the fibrous carbs, it's moving your body in a way where you're, with how you're feeling, the hydration, it's the sleep. So those type of things as well. And then thinking about, I'm not saying to cut out all the refined sugar, it's that 80-20 rule,
everything in moderation. Yes.
That's right. Exactly. But just if the majority of it, if you can focus on the good stuff, your body, you're going to tell by how you feel and how your brain's functioning just good with the clarity, just by the food. And I also want to add in herbs too, because herbs are also huge as well. That goes in with my food piece, but herbs are another thing that helps with. And again, that goes back to ancient Greek and years and years. So, so that's also something else as well. So it's all those lifestyle things together.
Well, and you mentioned sleep, and that was the next one on my list. And when it was about over 3 years ago now, that's what happened to me. It was all of a sudden I couldn't sleep, and I'm like, why? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know why. I wasn't really thinking about it, right? But I couldn't sleep, so what are some of the tips that you use to be able to kind of support sleep, and especially during that first kind of transition phase?
Yeah. So just to explain that when our hormones just begin to change, I mentioned earlier, progesterone's the first thing to decline, and that's our Zen hormone. That's the one that comes with and helps us sleep. But when it's decreased, then we feel more anxious, and we're like this in the middle of the night, like, oh my gosh, I got to do this and this and this.
It's like the little rats are racing, right? Like,
I
what are you
know.
doing tomorrow? Oh my goodness.
I know. So that was like an eye opener too.
Hmm.
Um, so this is what we do. What do we do? We're on our phones.
Of course.
Yeah. So the
Yes.
one thing I would encourage, because that messes with our melatonin, serotonin,
Mhm.
whole thing, the blue light and being on our devices. Um, so with that said, if possible, unplugging before, like an hour or two before.
Mhm.
And what I encourage, because someone's like, an hour or two before, my gosh, what I encourage is that we got to get our stress levels down.
Right.
So guess what? If we unplug our phones or devices and they're locked away in their little plug-in area, little hubs,
Hmm.
then you know what? Let's read a book. Let's do some
Hmm.
breathing exercise. Breathing is incredible. That also helps with cognitive as well. I didn't
Yeah.
mention that. But let's create some downtime. Create a little nook in your room, or have a little safe space. Read, light some candles, do some stretching. Take time for yourself, because again, that's another thing that us women,
Hmm.
we don't take time for ourselves. And I understand, as moms, and also I'm at an age where I have an older mom,
Hmm.
um, and so she may need some, she lives on her own, but still
Hmm.
she may need some assistance. But then my kids, they're in college, but yet they still live at home, so
Hmm.
sometimes they need, you need some help. But when they were little, still, I understand that as well.
Yeah.
But you need the time. It doesn't matter how old you are, you need the time. So de-stressing. So even though it may seem devastating, unplugging the device, look at it as hey, it's my time. So even
Hmm.
it's 5 minutes you can spare, even 10 minutes. De-stressing is huge. And that's going to help you sleep as well.
Yeah.
Um, so we talked about the blue light from the phones. Here's something, if you get a chance, it's also the red light therapy.
Hmm.
Um, Doing it during the day is a little bit more helpful than I believe than in the evening, that I've done research on. But having the red light therapy helps with sleeping as
Hmm.
well. I have a little mito red light
Yeah.
that I would have that, but then also helps with mitochondria and healing the body.
Yeah.
So that helps as well. And so if you don't have a red light therapy little box, you can also use a red light bulb.
Hmm.
Simple as that.
Yep.
And my husband thought I was nuts when I did this. I'm like, switching the bulbs.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. As soon as you turn the bulb on and the room's all red, you instantly feel relaxed. And so sitting in red light, just a red light bulb, is going to um, help you fall asleep and feel more relaxed
Yeah.
and better sleep. So again, these little things,
Hmm.
uh, small things, are going to help with sleeping. Now we can get into supplements as well.
Hmm.
I know glycine helps,
Mm.
taurine helps sometimes,
Yeah.
magnesium. Glycinate
Hmm.
also helps. So those are some other things. I would recommend the supplements if my clients have tried everything and they're just still not getting that good night's sleep, or a better sleep. But then those are some supplements that I would always encourage to look into as well. So
Nice. And I want, before I get into kind of the final, because I always love to give like your top 3 tips. But before we hit that, I do have one. I want to dig into one more topic, and that you mentioned herbs.
yeah, yeah.
And so what are some of your favorites for this particular phase of life?
Well, I tell you, the herbs that are really like black cohosh, that
Mhm.
helps with some women. It just depends on everybody.
Yep.
Everybody's different.
Yep.
Black cohosh helps with hot flashes.
Mm.
So that one is a good one to have in your back pocket. There's Vitex.
Mhm.
Now, talking about sleeping, Vitex helped me a lot, and it's mostly in perimenopause. I noticed that
Mhm.
it's real effective, but Vitex helps increase progesterone, but it also provides that calming Zen feel. And so I get the tincture, and so I put it in a little bit of water, and I'd have it. You can have it like 3 times a day, just depending, but it does make you feel calm, and it's helped quite a few clients as well during the perimenopause phase.
Yeah.
I've tried it too in postmenopause as well. It's still effective, but I noticed more of a impact when I was during that phase.
Yeah.
Valerian, that's also another good herb for sleeping and feeling less anxious, and it's not just for sleeping, it's just feeling less anxious as well. On another aspect, on the other spectrum, fatigue, that's a big one. There's rhodiola. And so that one, I get in the tincture, but all of these you can get in capsules and what have you.
Yeah.
But that one will increase stamina. So that will give you a little bit more oomph to your energy levels as well. So these plants are it's overlooked so much. And if you think back from years ago and how they use these plants for medicinal, just for healing or for cuts, and it just, all sorts of things. And they're amazing, these plants.
Yeah,
so those are a few that I can think of offhand that would help with sleeping, stamina, hot flashes and stuff like that.
Amazing. And so I want to kind of close off. I'm going to talk about some of the ways people can find you, obviously, and I'll get you to share that too. But I always like to kind of have your, top 3 takeaways. Like if someone was going through this, what would be kind of 3 pieces of advice you really think that would be helpful for them to take away?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to say let's add instead of say, don't add sugar. To me, I think seed cycling is an inexpensive and a simple way to help balance your hormones. So I would say, hey, if you have an opportunity to get some seeds, and don't feel like you have to get these seeds, like all of them. If all you want to do is pumpkin seeds and not the flax, that's fine. But seed cycling would be the one for sure.
Yeah.
Implement the protein. Protein is huge. It's something that's overlooked, and even vegetarians, vegans, you can get your protein with beans. If people like meat, you can get it with beef or organic meats, chickens and what have you. So if fish, loaded with protein and stuff like that. So protein, and then there's protein powder, which my favorite's Vicon. Not it is. It is my favorite. And let me just say real quick, the reason why I love it so much is because I haven't been able to have whey protein in years because it bothers my stomach. And where you source it, it's so pure and so wonderful. It's I get the whey and all the goodness, and it doesn't bother my stomach. So thank you. But I wanted to say protein powders. So, but nothing wrong with pea proteins either. But just look at the ingredients.
Yes.
That's huge, because no matter what you're eating, read the label. So protein, and then movement. And movement, as I mentioned, I would love to see all my clients do resistance training, even with some bands. But you know what? It's okay if you walk. Don't disregard walking. Walking's no joke. And think about it. If you start off walking, you can just be at a regular pace, but you know what? You can then go fast and then slow. You can hold some weights, like 1 pound weights. So you can alter walking however you like, and it's a pretty darn good workout. So I don't want to disregard walking, because I know during this time, fatigue is like, poof. And you don't have the energy to like, I gotta work out. So I would say seed cycling, protein, and movement.
Amazing. Okay. So wellness program, the MenoWarrior Method. How can people find you, to work with you, for you to support them if they're going through these phases and stages of life?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So on my website, it's kicksparkfitness.com, and I only say Kickspark Fitness. I started out as Kickspark Fitness, and I'm no longer just fitness. So I've changed. I'm now Whole Body Wellness, but my website still says kicksparkfitness.com, and you'll be able to see what the MenoWarrior is all about. I do want to say what it includes. The beginnings, it's a 90-day program. It includes one-on-one coaching, group coaching. But what makes this special is that right before you begin, I have all my participants or the clients do hair mineral testing, because throughout the program, there's 9 methods. It goes through nutrition, it goes through movement, hydration, and then we get into the hormone piece. Because the first 3 are foundational, general, and then we get into hormone support. We talk about sleep, insulin resistance. We talk about herbs, foods, syncing your movement, what have you. And then we go into mindset. And we do mindset throughout. And when we talk about mindset, we're talking about, compassion to empowerment. What are some barriers? Different ways of thinking. And the reason why I have it majority of it towards the end is because you're not the same person when you started and when you finish, because you go through this. It's a lot of information, but having the hair mineral testing, it provides me and the client the one-on-one to see the personalized, because not everybody's going to be the same. So what the general is good rule of thumb, but we then customize it to them. And we work with the foods, we work with supplements, we work with herbs, movement. So we customize a plan for them as they move through it. And then they still get educated about the hormones and what they can do. And so they can spread it to their friends and family and their female, friends and daughters and sisters, and what have you. And then they see results, they feel better. And that's my goal, is feeling better. The biggest thing is, weight loss, and that is important. Don't get me wrong for many women, but to me, when I put this together, is to feel good, because I know how I felt. I felt it didn't feel so great. You feel like you're off, and you get blood work done, and it's like, oh, everything's normal, and it's like,
like, then why do I feel this way?
Yeah. Exactly. So I want to support women, say, listen, I hear you. And then going through the hair analysis, it shows a whole different thing than what a blood test, 3 months worth of your health versus the labs that day. And there's some things that you do need lab tests for, but just seeing the big picture. So that's what it's all about. And there's videos, there's I don't want to say assignments, there's things to do to implement, because you can read and listen to videos all you want, but if you don't implement it, if you don't do the work, then you don't see results, you don't feel better.
Exactly.
So but yeah, so that's when we get the group exercise, and then we also have a tiny habits coach that he comes in once a month, and it's a group call, and he talks about implementing, because again, it's a lot of 9 methods, and to put it all in one, try to change everything at once. This helps you take one thing at a time. And even if you finish the program, you have lifetime access. Then once you get so good at that one thing you just changed and it's now a habit, then you go back in the program and you adopt another thing, and then you so it's back and forth. So as you can tell, I get excited about it, but again, it's in those 90 days, it's a journey, and it takes time, but it's all my motto is compassion to empowerment. It's being compassionate to yourself, but you know what? In the meantime, while you're educating, you're becoming empowered. And and don't take what's given to you unless you want to accept it, but know that there's more out there. There's nature, there's foods, there's movement, there's so many other things, lifestyle things you can do besides just taking a pill. Just know that. Again, there's nothing wrong with taking a pill if needed, but just know there are lifestyle options you can do to help yourself.
Amazing. Well, thank you for that, Sherri. And so for everybody who's watching and listening, we'll have all of those links in the description of where you're watching. And so Sherri, thanks for being on the show today. It was wonderful information. And, we do this, I always say, if one person can have an aha moment and realize that there's another route for them to take, then it was meant to be.
And, if you don't mind, I also, if they're welcome, I do have a free menopausal guide,
Perfect.
menopausal guide. So that's something that I always wish that I had.
Yeah.
So it's a free guide. If anybody wants it, I believe we'll have it on the link if they want to access it.
Perfect.
And yeah, it's all about empowerment. So any questions, feel free to reach out.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you. And so for those of you watching on YouTube, thanks so much for checking out this episode. Give this one a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to my channel. There's a brand new episode every 2 weeks. For those of you listening on your favorite podcast host, make sure you follow us and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us today on the Human Optimization Podcast. Episode technical production is by Grace Sylvester and guest booking by Stu Tate. Want to learn more? Visit LisaPitel-Killah.com for incredible free resources to supercharge your journey to becoming the best version of you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to the Human Optimization Podcast and follow me on social media at Lisa Pitel-Killah.